Dear brothers and sisters, we will be reading the peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور انفسنا ومن سيئات اعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له واشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد ان محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم يا ايها الذين امنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن الا وانتم مسلمون يا ايها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحده وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والارحام ان الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا ايها الذين امنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير هدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. We translate now. Indeed, all praise belongs to Allah. We Lord Him, we magnify Him, and we seek His forgiveness. We seek refuge with Allah from the wickedness of our deeds and the bad results of our actions. Whomever Allah has guided, they can't be led astray. Whoever has been led astray, there is none that can guide them. And I give open testimony and I bear witness that nothing deserves to be served or worshipped as a deity, as a God, as a Ilah, except Allah. He is alone without having any partner. And I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the prophet and his messenger. After this, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would mention 3 ayahs from the Quran. We'll translate now and give the English meaning more or less. Verses 3, or you who have believed, fear Allah as He should be feared, and do not die except in the state of submission. Then in the second verse, O people, fear your Lord, the one who created you from a single soul, and from that soul created his mate, and from the both of them He created many men and women. And fear Allah, for whom you demand your mutual right, and do not sever the ties with the womb that bore you, for surely Allah is ever al-Waqid, or the all-watcher over you. Then in the third and final verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala admonishes us further, O you who have believed, fear Allah, keep your duty to Him, and always speak the straight word. Perhaps He will guide your conduct, and He will forgive your sins. And whoever obeys Allah as messenger has indeed attained the greatest of all triumphs. As to what follows, surely the best speech is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the Quran, and the best guidance is the guidance of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which we find in the authentic tradition. And the worst of all affairs in this deen are those who introduce acts of worship that don't have a basis in the Quran or the Sunnah. All those things are innovation. Every innovation is straight, every straight leads to the fire. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this most beautiful, auspicious day of Juma'a, beautiful rainy day that He blessed us with. We ask Him that He would keep us far removed and protected from the fire. Dear brothers and sisters, we can never thank Allah enough for allowing us to come together as we do on Friday. We can never be blessed enough to be in front of the believers, in front of the Muslims, wherever I might be, without remembering this word from the Quran. Allah reminds us again, if you counted up the favors of Allah, never would you be able to number them. For Allah is all forgiving and merciful. So again, I mentioned this when I was here months ago, and I mentioned it, alhamdulillah, for the better part of 29 years now. I probably mentioned it every Juma'a. We don't take for granted this small thing that Allah gives us. You know, I was on a plane this morning, flying in, literally flew in this morning. My suitcase is on the staircase over there. Flew in, I'm on a plane, we're about a half hour in, pilot comes on, the speaker says, we're at our cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. I think for a minute, what's really holding up this plane? You know, the pilot comes on and he thinks it's him, you know. We have a cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. We're going to have you on the ground and do it 5 minutes earlier than we expected. And he goes through the whole thing that they go through, sit back and relax. And they'll be through shortly with beverages. And we'll connect with you again when we touch down in Newark. I'm just thinking, man, that man, by the grace of Allah, man, we could be like those people that we look on the news and we see a plane was just snatched out the head. They don't know what happened, man. No mechanical failure. They do the inspection, look at the black box, and they can't find out what happened. Allah made it happen. So just being able to take off and touch down, we take as a mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again. And never will we be able to count up the favor of Allah because we walk with Him most mercy. But again, the very idea of us being able to wake up first and foremost today. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala much. And just a reminder, I know our brother Imam, please take a moment, check down, check your phone, turn them off, and to make sure that we don't do anything that would disturb the Khutbah, inshallah. So we're going to get right to it, dear brothers and sisters. I just wanted to share that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, often repeated verse. All of us in our reading, if we read every day, every few days, if we only read every Ramadan, you know. We read this verse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين. How we translate that? Let's look at this for a minute. One translation tells us, He is the one. This is Allah they're talking about. He is the one who raised for the illiterate people a messenger from among themselves, reciting to them His revelations, purifying them and teaching them the book and the wisdom. For indeed, before this, they had been in manifest error. Dalal al-Mubin. So now let's dissect this for a minute. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Here's a man that Allah elevated and sent to people who were illiterate. They weren't, as we would say, well-learned people. They couldn't read, they couldn't write in the lower echelon of society. But Allah raised up a messenger from amongst them so that they would recognize it and they would be more apt to be able to understand and take from Him. And And Allah said he has specific purposes. Reciting to them his revelations, meaning he came to what? Call Allah, the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To what? Purify them and teach them the book and the wisdom. And I want to make it clear to everybody, we never need to speculate about what the wisdom is that Allah is referring to in his word. We're talking about the prophetic tradition of the Prophet. The things he said, the things he did, not those things that he did because it was his cultural preference in terms of what he ate a particular food because he liked his food. I'm talking about the things that he was commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us. How do you apply those things? This is part of that wisdom. Because again, as the verse ends, before then they were what? Allowed to be clearly in manifest error. So now, let's surmise. Let's operate on the fact that we accept that. Everybody here accepts that. We say that we're Muslims, we believe in Allah, we believe in his messenger. Let's say that, okay, we understand clearly that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent with the Quran and the Sunnah to purify us, teach us the book and the wisdom. Everybody here got consensus. Allah, you did. So now we go to the tradition of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam because we understand that that is the wisdom. And one of the things that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us is that in Hadith, and I've actually got to discredit this, alhamdulillah, before I ever read it in my studies, I learned this Hadith from my dear brother Mustafa many years ago. He probably doesn't even remember it, so 30-something years ago. Where the Prophet prayer, the peace be upon him, said that the best among you, and we know that there are many hadith that begin that way, where the Prophet would give a series of things of being able to help us understand that from a character building standpoint, that if you do these things, this will make you to be among the best of the Muslims. So my brother told me this idea that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the best of you is he who teaches the simple things. Teaches the simple things. So sometimes, dear sisters and brothers, we go all around, and when we go to this lecture, that lecture, we sit with this shake, that shake. Every time a new book comes out, we buy it. We haven't even read the last one. But when it comes to Islam 101, those basic fundamental rights that every Muslim understands, even the Muslim that we would say, and some of us would say, have bad aqidah. I ain't gonna take none from him. Even the Muslim with defective beliefs will believe these things. We don't act upon these things. I want to share one of those statements, and I want us to ask ourselves, do we really believe that the Prophet ﷺ is who Allah says he is? This is the statement that the Prophet ﷺ gave us. And Anas and the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam qala la yu'minu ahadukum hatta yuhibba li akhihi ma yuhibbu li nafsihi. Simple statement, right? 2.5, right? 3 lines of Arabic. Even me with my bad Arabic, I was able to learn. 3 lines. What does this mean? And it's reported on the authority of the Prophet, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, that the Prophet said, none of you have attained true faith unless he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. Okay, so this is from Islam 101. This is the very basic understanding of what we get from that Kitabul Hikmah, the book of wisdom. This is wisdom from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So now, let's look at this hadith. Let's dissect it for a minute. One of the things we see in this statement from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and one of the many miracles that Allah blessed the Prophet to be able to possess and to manifest and make known to the people, is that the Prophet, praise and peace be upon him, was blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he would be able to say short things that would have volumes of meaning. Meaning that I can pick this hadith that I just read 3 lines, and wallahi, it's volumes written about this one hadith. It's so extensive. Volumes. To the point that when you go through to try to give some sharh or explanation of the hadith, you have to start picking and choosing which we want to mention because there's so much. We can do a lecture series from now to who knows when, until probably the start of Ramadan, and still wouldn't exhaust everything that this hadith teaches us from a practical standpoint. So let's give a couple of points from this example of the Prophet ﷺ, and then I'm going to ask us a rhetorical question. And again, Allah knows best whether or not we actually comprehend this. Please bear with me. Okay, here we go. Some of the scholars of Islam, dear brothers and sisters, go as far as to say that one hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is equivalent, I want you to listen to this, to 1/4, some say even 1/3 of Islam. Think about Islam, right? 1444 years removed from the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. 1,000+ years of Islamic scholarship, history, legacy, volumes and volumes of things we could read, endless. Yet that one 3-line hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the consensus. It's agreed upon that if you just get that point that I mentioned, you would have achieved 1/3 of what Islam wants you to get. So how easy does Allah make it for us to be able to be successful and to be in compliance with Him? Ultimately, we think that Islam sometimes is difficult because of the restrictions that Allah has put on us, but really the bar has been set so low. What happens is that oftentimes we go too far in making Islam too complicated, not just for ourselves, but for other people, and that becomes a problem. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this statement, he's teaching us a number of different things, and I just want to mention a couple of those points, inshallah, before we go to the second part. And why do I try to have the text here, and I cannot find the text in my notes, and I know that I know it by memory, but I always bring it back up, fold it just in case. Here we go. We have it. So now, this hadith, I want to understand. This is hadith number 13 from the selection of the 40 hadith of Imam Nathari. And what we learn from this hadith is something that is taught even here in this society in school when they used to teach a thing called civics. It's called social studies now. You may learn it in history, or even just in your teachings, early foundation of teaching. You'll learn this from your teacher, even at the primary level. This is what they call the golden rule. Do unto others as you would want done unto you. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us through the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this example. So we ask the question that was asked to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this authentic narration is written in Al-Hakim, where a companion asked the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, O Messenger of Allah, you have seen what is bestowed upon me from beauty. And because of that beauty that it has been bestowed upon me, I would like that anyone else would look better than me. Is that transgression? So the Prophet, praise peace be upon him, he responded, he said, no, that's not transgression. That's not arrogance. What is arrogance or transgression is to reject the truth when faced with it and to look down upon people. To look down upon people. So here's a man who stood in front of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and essentially said the modern day equivalent of, Ya Rasulullah, I'm that guy. I have a new thobe, I got my gators, and I don't want nobody to be flyer than me. Is that arrogant? The Prophet said, no, as long as you don't look down on other people, you can still be that guy. But ultimately, that doesn't make you to be the person that you need to strive to be in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's so many layers to this particular statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and there's so much that we can mention by way of commentary. And I'm going to just mention a couple of things as it pertains specifically to what I want to talk about in the second part of the book. In this idea of wanting for your brothers, and by clear, I want to be clear, sisters that are listening or watching. No way whatsoever are the women excluded from this, because this is a universal principle. It applies to the women as well as it applies to the men. None of you are truly believe until you want for your sister what you want for your sister. Same premise, same principle. But I want to speak specifically about this idea of this hadith and how it relates to the rights of brotherhood. And most of the commentary that we find on the rights of brotherhood, again, that we ask, do we truly want for our brothers and sisters what we want for ourselves? We say that, and it sounds good. It sounds like the correct, righteous thing to say, but do we really mean that? So here's how we put that to the text. We say that the rights of brotherhood are 3 levels. And the first of those, actually go further. That there's many rights of brotherhood, but this aspect of the first that we want to talk about, which is seeing to the needs of your brother or your sister, there's 3 levels to that. I'm going to share what those 3 are. The lowest level, meaning the easiest thing to do in terms of seeing to the needs of your brother or your sister, is that when they ask you for something, that you will attend to their needs with a smiling face and in a welcoming way. So if a brother comes and asks you for something, you don't become put off or become standoffish and treat him with other than the dignity that Islam says that he or she should have. You do it in a welcoming way and you have a smile on your face. The middle portion of this, or the second of the 3 levels, is seeing to their needs without them needing to ask. Now think about that idea. Some of us, we might be praying in the same masjid 10, 15, 20 years, 25 years. In this case here, I'm looking at 28 years. So a person might be praying in the place 20, 30 years. You pray with the same brothers. Basically, you get to know each other, at least on the surface level, by seeing them in the back. And you know that a brother needs something. And why you say that? Because for the last 5 of the years that you've been around the brother, you see that, and he's been wearing the same pair of shoes. You walk in with him, you watch him put them on the rack, and you see that this goes on for years. So the middle level of understanding this hadith would be what? You come in, when the brother finishes salah, you put it in your car, you have a pair of shoes, because you don't look at the size and everything, you put them on the rack with the shoes. Now, we pray Allah will allow us to get to that level. We know that, as we say, there's levels to this. So we got to get there. So that's the second level, right? But the third level, which is that highest level, and this is where Allah, we pray that He will allow us to really attain true humanity, where we can reach this level. And that is where you put the needs of your brother or sister over your own needs. Over your own needs. And that doesn't necessarily have to always be in terms of something tangible. Sometimes it might just be in just how you handle and talk with people, that you might have to deal with a person in a way that you know they need to be dealt with, even if it's at your own expense. So how many times, and this is why when we see where we look at even the idea of lying to someone, how the Prophet said that one of the instances that it's permissible to lie to somebody's blood is to make peace between 2 brothers, right? So you might know 2 brothers or 2 sisters among sisters, they have an issue. And the sister is saying, oh, man, I don't like this one. So the husband said, what are you talking about? She loves you. She said, that overwhelming you had on the other day was beautiful. I said, oh, really? She said that? Oh, alhamdulillah. So the sister sees her next time she sees her husband, and the other sister wonders, why she not even? And she don't even know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used somebody to facilitate a relationship between those 2 people. So I'm saying all that to say that this, and I got a whole list of things again. I got about 4 pages of points that I could mention, but in the 30 minutes that we have allowed. But I'm sure, inshallah, somebody much more competent than me will come in and we will talk about these things. And the reason I talk about these things, I have to say this, because we mention a lot of things from Islam. A lot of times we have a lot of different various ways of expressing ourselves. Whether no matter what a person may call themselves. But when we look at what we actually speak about, that we can directly connect the practical application, that's usually the thing that's most lacking. We like to talk about things in the abstract that don't require us to do nothing. Where we can just talk about it and do like that. We used to say in our early expression, we just want to really just science up about something. We don't really want to sit down and say, how do we implement this so that we can build upon it? Because along with that comes responsibility. And it becomes a sacrifice. And Allah forbid somebody's going to ask us to do something that takes us out of our comfort zone. So the reason I like to mention these kind of things like this is because one of the fundamental issues that we deal with, that we have, men with men, women with women, men and women within relationships, from the marital sense, of course, to some of these people, is the issue of wanting for each other what we want for ourselves in relationships. 9 out of 10 of our problems could be directly traced to relationships. And it's no coincidence that the Prophet ﷺ said in one of his statements in our close. He said that, and I don't remember who narrated it, Allah knows best, we searched it and we know it's authentic. He said that Never will you find two sons of Adam that have a disagreement with each other except that one has committed some act of treachery against the other. So we don't ever have this disagreement just for the sake of having disagreements because somebody went outside the realm of brotherhood or went outside the realm of sisterhood. And that happens because we're imperfect. We're imperfect people trying to practice the perfect religion. Perfection belongs to Allah alone. But what happens is that we don't respect the rights of brotherhood and sisterhood enough to check each other and to make sure that we don't exacerbate or amplify when we have differences. And sometimes we go so far that we'll see two people that have a difference between each other, and we'll do everything we can to make the issue even worse. We'll do everything we can to pull those two people apart. For whatever reason, maybe it's a sickness that Allah has placed us with collectively, and I ask Him to cure us, me first and foremost, all of us. But it happens. So we have to get to the point that we love for each other what we love for ourselves, and we have to get to the point that in our relationships we apply that same thing. And I remember I was talking with a brother once, and he made a statement that I really understood as I pondered it. He said, I don't think that we necessarily hate each other, meaning when we have issues among the Muslims. He said, maybe we just don't love each other enough. And I thought about that. And in most cases, that can be true. But in some cases, Shaitan has woven his way in our ranks so much that we really start to hate each other and don't even know why. SubhanAllah, I don't even know why. I had an issue once where the brother I always said that there was some attitude that he had. And you can sense when a person is standoffish. So I asked the brother who knew both of us, I said, which one did I never did anything to him? The brother said, oh, you didn't know? I said, no, what? He said, oh, man, back in 73, man, him and your father had an issue about something, man. And I was like, whoa, what? In 73? SubhanAllah. I'm not saying it to make us laugh, but I want us to understand, man, just the sheer silliness of some of the stuff that we do, man. And then we want to allow Allah to bless us. We want to allow Allah to bless us to move forward. And it happens in our ummah, man. For a person like me, who's a second generation Muslim, and I have a son, third generation, and now I have grandchildren, 4 generations. We pass on generational enemies to our children and don't even know it. Where a person will hold you in contempt because of something that happened generations ago, that if you were to get the two original people together, they don't even remember what happened. That even caused them to have an issue to begin with. So, dear brothers and sisters, before we go seeking to go and correct all of the world problems and world affairs and go all the way to China or any other place with a broom to sweep up in front of somebody else's house. Let's just start where we at and just clean up in front of ourselves first and foremost. Start where we're at. Let's clean up our own internal stuff, repair our relationships, and I would guarantee, wallahi, by Allah's permission, based on what His messenger has taught us, and first and foremost, what Allah has given us in His book, that our situation will change and increase overnight. If we would just focus on just doing that one aspect, one for your brother or sister, but one for yourself, because that would put together a certain put a certain spirit of love in your heart, and it would give you the type of love that's talked about in Arabic called ulfa, which would give you a connection based on a common bond and a common thing, and that it would take something totally out of this mindset to rupture that type of love. That's the kind of love we have to have for each other. There was a time that we had it when we didn't understand Islam correctly. Let's not let the correct understanding of Islam as we think we have it make us to treat each other with anything less than the dignity that Allah has already guaranteed us. We ask Allah for this, we mentioned it when we asked Him to give us all. Oh, we have that. We'll stop the line. We want to say, we mean, 100%. بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وحبيبنا ونبينا محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. Dear beloved brothers and sisters, as I conclude, I just want to share something that it's a global society issue, but it's very personal to me, and it should be very personal to all of us, inshallah, when I share it. And this is why I prefaced the Khutbah as I did today, that based on the hadith of the Prophet Now you have truly believed that you want for your brother, but you want for yourself. We're seeing in the time that we live in now, one of the most increased prevalence of one of the most unthinkable things that we can look at as Muslims, that we would see in a Muslim with this. Wow, we shudder to think about this. What is this? This is the issue that we're seeing in society today, where for whatever reasons, people are choosing to take their own lives. People are choosing to take their own lives. And I say that I take that personal because of a lot of habit. I know a couple of people whose children have taken their own lives. That they've gotten to the point where they become so frustrated with the different tests. And that for the Muslims, we know that all these things are tests. Allah is going to triumph with test us by all the things that we love. But it's a prevalent thing. And guess what? I'm here to remind you, as I remind myself, don't think that the Muslims are exempt from this. Because as much as we will say to each other, and correctly so, don't complain, take your problem to Allah, we should do that first and foremost. However, in part of our brotherhood and sisterhood, we need to have a culture where we at least have one or two people that we can go to and talk to them. I was reading a statistic, and they talked about how the suicide rate among Black men is the highest of any other ethnic group. And when they traced these stats, they said that the thing that they found is that when they surveyed thousands of Black men, it was like 5 major universities got together and did the study. They said that when they surveyed thousands of Black men, that about 60% of them said that they didn't have one friend that they could count. Just imagine that, man. You go through your whole life, man. Whatever age you are, you in your 20s, 30s, whatever old you may be, and you can't find one person that you feel that you can talk to. Man, I'm so blessed by Allah. There's people in this audience right now that I've been knowing for as long as I could walk. And I'm 2 years away from 60. They've been knowing me for when I was at the age of my youngest grandchild. So we have it within our community, within part of our cultural experience in Islam, and certainly overall within the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We're never going to have a problem where any of us feel that we got to be in isolation. And if we are, then that makes us look back at our institutions collectively. It's like, what are we not doing to develop an environment where people can come and get to know each other? It's not enough to just come in and make this light and leave. And every now and then, and alhamdulillah, this place under the leadership of our Imam has established a good precedent. And there's other people and other places that are doing it as well, that we're starting to expand the activities. And every now and then, you just have to come to the Masjid and just give a dinner and put the food out and don't try nobody else. Just so people can sit and get to know one another. And when this doesn't happen, and we've seen that we've lost entire generations of Muslim children, why? Because they grew up in Islam. We're so strict about how we want to enforce gender rules, and we know that there's a certain habit we have, but we have it like we can't even be in the same physical building, and Allah forbid see a woman, but you be in the grocery store, man, looking at a woman's face the whole time that you're there. But we come in the masjid and want to be self-righteous. Oh, brother, you can't be in the dinner here with their sisters in the building, and your children grow up seeing that, and they have all these curiosities. And then you mad when what? Your daughter comes home with Jody Muhammad. Guess who's coming for dinner? Jody. Jody's there. Why? Because Jody's been looking at us. He looks beautiful in her hijab. And see, Jody's slick. I mean, he got street smart. He got game. He gonna talk to her. The next thing you know, man, hey, Jody's sharing stuff with her that Abdullah couldn't even possibly try to share. And then it's over. And then Jody, I will be lying, Jody get her pregnant, and then you bring your daughter back here and you want Abdullah to marry. The same Abdullah that wanted to marry her many years before Jody died. And then the brother tell you, well, take her to Jody, make Jody marry. And I know I'm being very graphic, but our situation is serious, man. And the collection of these problems that is affecting young people more than anything, particularly the younger people, because the younger people, they're always on. They're on these devices all the time. They're constantly absorbing information, much of it no good for them. And they start to develop a sense of reality that's based on other people's things that they put up that are fake to begin with. So they build a whole life that they want to model based on fakeness that doesn't even apply to them in their reality. So, dear brothers and sisters, I don't know what more I can say. I don't know. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I hope and pray that we today we leave here and we make it a priority. Sisters with sisters, brothers with brothers. Let's do what we can to try to put our arms around each other as much as we can, because everybody is dealing with something that you don't know about sometimes. This is the human condition. Everybody deals with it. We take our problems to our mouth. But some mornings I get up, man, and I'm like despondent. I got a sister who I used to talk to every day, who she hasn't spoken a word in 2 years. 2 weeks ago made 2 years that Allah put her in a situation with a medical issue. She hasn't uttered a word in 2 years and can't move on her own beyond just the head movement. Cannot talk, can't speak, can't feed herself, can't use the restaurant or anything like that. People are going through these things all over the world and all over our Ummah, and people, you have to have an opportunity to be able to talk to people. Alhamdulillah, I have a Muslim family. We talk and we bear this burden together. But how about the Muslim that comes into Islam and comes to the ring? He ain't got no Muslim family. And you haram him up because he can't go see his grandmother on Christmas, because only be glad that's going to be an issue if he even in a house where there's a tree. Even though he's just going to see his grandmother on the day that the whole family is dead because everybody's off work. So that's kind of our foolishness, brothers and sisters, because now Allah will continue to test us, and He's going to continue to point out the collective hypocrisy in us when we say that we believe that Allah sent the prophet for all those things we mentioned in that hadith and all these ayahs and other hadith that we read, but we truly don't love each other and work with each other when we want for ourselves. And I pray Allah that we can get to the point that when we come to that masjid and we greet each other, as I told my brother earlier, Alhamdulillah, you know, everybody got a few Arabic terms, and when you ask the person that, you know, to us, we write it off. What's up? How you doing? No, you know what that means? What is your condition? How are you? How are you really doing? And if you ask that, you need to be willing to hear the answer from that person and do what you can to help them. Inshallah. So we ask Allah to increase our brotherhood, to increase our sisterhood, to give us our shortcomings, those things done in the past, and anything that we may do in the future, and that Allah continues to make us better. For Allah continue to make me and all of us better. For Allah continue to make me and all of us better. For Allah continue to make me and all of us better. قومنا صلاتي ونسجد ومجاهدة ومحمد رب العالمين سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك واشهد ان لا اله الا انت واستغفرك واتوب اليك.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. Brothers and sisters, once again, please check your cell phones to make sure they're off. This is all about
Reading our rules, reading part of the prayer, part of reading the rules as best as possible. Saying for just down to speak their minds, seek mercy to the Allah. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وإن تبدوا ما في أنفسكم أو تخفوه يحاسبكم به الله فيغفر لمن يشاء ويعذب من يشاء والله على كل شيء قدير. آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون قولوا آمنا بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله وقالوا سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. الله أكبر. الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. I hope that the announcement going out and I have to please support the Masjid. Please give generously. Please give generously to the Masjid, especially for all the ones in the streets. Also, please think about the 20 days, think about all the things that are sick, all the things that are studying, all the Muslims that are see, don't see.
Brothers who park in the church parking lot, you have to, after the Asr Salat, move your vehicle. And please, inshallah, ta'ala, brothers, still follow the rules. We need to exit the back door. Once again, brothers, please exit the back door. Inshallah, ta'ala. As I was saying, you have your car parked in the church parking lot, not saying it's awesome. Please move it down. You want to stay for the Salat Asr, please make sure you move it right after the Salat is over. Also, brothers, inshallah ta'ala, we need a young brother, inshallah ta'ala, who's able to teach Islamic studies on Saturday from 11 o'clock to 11:45. Once again, we need a young brother to come in and teach the younger brothers Islamic studies from 11 a.m. to 11:45 a.m. Anybody who's interested, please come speak to me. Inshallah ta'ala. Also, brothers, don't forget the men's dinner. Inshallah. Men's and women's dinner. Men's and women's dinner. I just got corrected. Big shame. Okay, we clear on that. Bring it. I'll try to slim down. Okay. Okay, mashallah. That's why I made it now. You understand that? Inshallah, pray. Stop it. Bilal, Shadi, right now. Because we only got, I think, 20. Okay. So you better hop on it right now. Inshallah.